Welcome back to Learn Astrology with Mary. My name is Mary English. You can find me at www.maryenglish.com, maryenglish.co.uk and UK Astrologer. Now, this week, I'd like to return to Donna Cunningham's wonderful book, The Consulting Astrologer's Guidebook. I can't get too much of that book. I love it. I quoted rather extensively from it. I think last time was episode 419, but now we're episode 442, so we've moved on a bit, and I'm on the chapter now. Oh God, what's the chapter called? We're a bit further into the book, and this is chapter 6, Vocational Astrology. Now, she considers vocational astrology as helping a client with their career choices, which is quite a lot of clients will come for that. Now, the majority of my clients come for relationship issues. I expect that's because my 7th house has my sun sign in it and my Mercury. And yeah, the majority, big percentage of my work is the relationships or relationship that somebody is having or not having with their partner. However, there has been over the years people coming, and especially younger people, asking about their careers. And I'm going to read some of this to you because I love the points she makes. She's such a great writer. She really had a good ability to write. And with her being a sun sign Cancer, I know she got a Leo ascendant, etc., she definitely wrote her books to make them easy to understand. You didn't need to go off and get a degree to understand them. Lush, love that. Now, in addition, which I haven't done before, I have created the chart for the person that she's talking about. She doesn't give the location, but she gives the coordinates of where the person was born. So she's done it like the west and the east and the blah 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 blah. So those are coordinate-y things. Well, that's a point. I probably haven't told you about that. Let me tell you about that before we go any further. So I've uploaded 2 charts to the Libsyn platform, and this gentleman was born on the 27th of January 1949 at 6:02 a.m. Now, we have done quite a few episodes of reverse engineering the chart. We don't have to do that. But what she tells us in the book is that the client was born with EST, so that's Eastern Standard Time, and gives the location of birth as 39 degrees north 27, 75 degrees west 10. And what have I chosen? I've chosen 74, so we're now 74 west and north 39, and I've made it to 40. I've chosen New York because I know it's East Coast because that's where that time zone is, and I didn't have enough brain cells to get it exactly, but it's pretty good enough. And I've checked the chart, and the ascendant that she gives here is 15 degrees is the ascendant, and on my chart it's 39 minutes, on hers it's 28. So it's good enough to be able to use for the podcast purposes today for what we're talking about. But those coordinates that are on there, when you click to choose your location when you're on astro.com, it'll give you the names of all the cities, and then next to it, because I just typed in New York. There's various different New Yorks in the US, and then it gives you the coordinates. And those coordinates are how the world is divided up landmass wise. They're not used an awful lot. It's probably only astrologers and people that are interested in geography, etc., that are going to use them. But you'll have 2 sets of coordinates, and they're underneath the so if you look in the book's top left, so I've called it Donna Client, and then it says born on Thursday the 27th of January 49, read on the left hand side, in New York, USA, 74 West 00 40 N43. So what that means, it's 74 degrees west and 00, so there's no minutes, and then 40 degrees north and 43, I don't know if it's seconds, minutes or inches, don't ask me. But those are coordinates of how we're dividing up the countryside to be able to calculate the exact parts of the chart. Okay, so they're latitude and longitude. So in this, we've got west and north. So the N stands for north latitude and W stands for the west longitude. So that's the way that we divide the Earth up that we're on. So that's that. So just in case you wanted to know what those numbers were. And I said, I don't know what computer program she would have used back then, and this book is written in 1994, so it's a while ago, but I don't think I'm too far out. But anyway, I wasn't going to go searching for hours, otherwise I never would have got the podcast today. But for the purposes of this, which we're talking about vocational readings and people wanting to know about their jobs and what's going to happen. Now, what I like about the title of the next section that I'm going to read to you is, she says, why a vocational reading is not psychotherapy. It's important to understand that a vocational reading is not psychoanalysis. That statement may sound strange from an astrologer who is also a psychotherapist, but consider where clients who ask for vocational advice are coming from. They're in a business frame of mind, a bottom line mood, even a Saturn sensibility. They're probably having Saturn transits or transits to the midheaven, or they would not be coming for this particular session in the first place. They're future orientated and want to get on with their lives, not rummage around in the garbage of the past. They're not paying you for that, so any rummaging you do had better be relevant to the question at hand. You need to be able to demonstrate clearly and logically just how many emotional and historical questions impinge on their potentials for success. To do otherwise would be intrusive. I believe strongly in a non-intrusive approach to the chart analysis, one in which you focus on clients' concerns and in other matters respect their right to privacy. If you can show precisely why a problem with mom or dad causes the client to do self-defeating things on the job, then you're providing useful information. If you're skillful in this, you can go a long way towards motivating the client to seek help with the problem. The client now would have a practical reason to spend all that money on therapy, healing, or investing precious time in a self-help group. Proving the relevancy of the past to the present is not even that hard to do. Consider that the 10th house, which shows the parents as authority figures, is related to how people handle authority figures as adults. Suppose the client is having a difficult relationship with the boss, or especially a pattern of difficulty with supervisors. You can delineate with a good deal of accuracy what the primary authority figure at home was like. It is then easy to lead the client to make connections between reactions to that authority figure and habitual reactions to bosses. Incidentally, that tired old 4th, 10th house debate about which house represents the mother and which is the father is a false one to my way of thinking. The 10th is the primary authority figure, but also depicts both parents in their authority function, while the 4th is the nurturing function, and I absolutely agree with that. The moon in the midheaven suggests a mother-dominated home, but also generally describes the father as a lunar type. You can usually tell whether astrologers come from a mother-dominated or a father-dominated home by which parent they espouse as representing the 10th house. The father's influence is shown in several ways. In the sun and its aspects, Saturn and its aspects, the midheaven and any 10th house planets, and even at times in Mars. You might think that men more than women would derive their identity and self-worth from the father, thus from the sun. However, sun aspects are devastating to the self-esteem however, difficult sun aspects are devastating to the self-esteem regardless of gender. When I delve into the causes of self-esteem problems related to difficult sun aspects, the relationship with the father is nearly always implicated. Surprisingly, in doing vocational counselling for women, both the midheaven and the sun are often significant in showing identification with the father and his impact as a role model in terms of career. This is particularly true when the mother filled the more traditional roles and did not work outside the home. Thus, when dealing with career issues, I'm careful to find out about the woman's father, his vocational history and his success or failure in following his dreams. Now, that piece of advice also applies with people's attitude towards money, because where do you learn about money when you're growing up? You learn about it from your parents. And I have seen a lot of times about clients' attitude towards, so these are clients that are coming and asking about their work, their attitude towards how much they can earn is so influenced by what their parents did or didn't earn. Anyway, Saturn and its aspects are only partially related to the father, although he often shows up in chart readings as Saturn. Here, the authority functions of both parents are indicated, as well as the discipline, structure, and consistency they provide. Astrologers in some European countries delineate the mother's influence as Saturn rather than the moon. This no doubt reflects profound differences in child-rearing patterns and family roles. The midheaven and 10th house plans also show the parents as authority figures. Mars and its aspects have to do with the images of masculinity which both boys and girls take in. They also show such Mars-related issues as how we deal with anger, how we go after the things we desire, and how able we are to assert ourselves. While we do not exclusively learn these things from our fathers, he's generally the earliest role model and thus perhaps the most influential. When there are difficult Mars aspects in a chart, there are almost always obstacles to overcome in these areas. When I delve into such problems, the cause is nearly always the father and how he treated the child or how he acted as a role model in dealing with these issues. In showing how issues with parents get transferred to supervisors, it's also powerful to point out that the expectations and needs that the inner child is still trying to have met are not, this is in italics, are not appropriate to the workplace. Bosses are not parents, and it's no use being mad because they're not taking care of you. Speaking as one who has supervised, when you hire an employee, you're not looking to adopt a child. You just want to get the job done. And yet, it is very common for residues of unmet or frustrated needs to be transferred on to the employer, especially when parents have been dysfunctional. Even when the boss is different by nature than the parent was, the behaviours and attitudes of the employee can recreate family dynamics, setting up conflict. For instance, with the moon on the midheaven, there may have been a strong codependency with the mother. By being highly responsive and sensitive to the supervisor's emotions and needs, the employee may set up codependent relationships at work time after time. Now, I have definitely worked with someone who that has happened to. They were brought up by a mother who suffered from severe mental health issues when they were growing up, and the child had to constantly look out for and care for the mother. And then they're now grown up, and the work that they do, they work exclusively for a woman who has no children. And it's got so far as this poor lady will work for this lady and not be paid. And the amount of times we've had consultations and I've said to her, this work that you just say you're doing at the moment, are you going to be paid? And she worries constantly that no one else knows this employer as well as she does, and that definitely so this particular lady has gone from this dreadful upbringing with the awful mother, not the mother's fault, of course. The mother had a mental health problem. I don't know, the child's birth was traumatic for her. She did have another kiddie later on, but the first child, long story short. And now in her work, she just doesn't make enough money, and she swings, this is the client I'm talking about now, swings from one good position to something else, and really struggles. This one lady that she works for, and she's not even officially employed, she's employed in a sort of self-employed capacity, and the similarities between the childhood trauma that she had and the way it works out at work. And I've got to tell you, I have seen this a lot. So if this is you and you're listening to the podcast and you're having a dreadful relationship with your employer or your boss or your supervisor, think about the relationship that you might have had with your parents. Now, this also might be another reason why people get into astrology. I mean, Donna reckons that a lot of people get into astrology because they've got alcoholic parents. My parents weren't alcoholics, so that's not a reasoning for me. However, my relationship with my mother was very strained until I became a mother, and my father was most of the time not there because he was away a lot. So when I went into the workplace to start with, it was a bit difficult, and then I got into retail management. It was much better, and I liked that being in between thing, that I wasn't, this is working in retail now, I wasn't the store manager, but I equally wasn't the employee. I had this sort of mid-level of work space, and my immediate employer, most of the time, I got on really well with. So much so I got on really, really well. And the staff I got really well. So I like that mid-management thing. I would never have wanted to have sat in an office and run the organisation. I liked literally being on the showroom, talking to people. And that was very reflective of my childhood, because I'm a middle child. So Kitty's older than me, Kitty's younger than me. And most of the time within our family, even there were lots of traumas and lots of difficult things happening, the family did stay together. So some families can split and then nobody's speaking to anybody for zillions of years, and I can safely say, touching wood, that as yet hasn't happened. Not that there's many of us left, there's only 3 of us left now. Anyway, an examination of the 10th house and parental authority is also relevant at another stage of the career. This is when the person crosses the line into supervision or management from having a boss to being a boss. This is an important developmental stage in the career, and one which is fraught with potential stumbling blocks. If you cannot master this task, you limit your success potential. Even if you are in business for yourself, you can only go so far without eventually having to hire some employees. Parental modelling is likely to creep in at this stage without conscious awareness as a model for now becoming an authority. Or people in this position may bend over backwards not to be like their parents were, and thus to avoid the boundary issues that being a boss entails. Similarly, people who function well as single adults or even in marriage get tripped into acting like their parents when they become parents themselves. We live what we learn. Thus, in order to be successful in an administrative or supervisory capacity, the person may well need to resolve any remaining authority problems. Now we get onto the charts. So the next bit, she says, how personal history affects vocation. Chart 10, page 157, which I'm giving you, is of a man who came for a reading in the midst of a career crisis, having recently been demoted out of a management position. He was a conservative businessman who did benefits consulting, i.e. he planned benefits such as insurance and pension plans for major corporations. At the same time, his wife was thinking of leaving their long-committed marriage. You might like to take a look at the transits for the original consultation, which took place late June 1989 and the follow-up in February 91. The most important transits were that Neptune and Saturn in Capricorn were beginning to set off his Capricorn ascendant and planets while squaring his natal Neptune. Now, I won't go any further into the book until we've looked at the chart. Now, in chart number 1, we've got him. So it's 27th of January 1949, 6:02 a.m. I've used New York, I say it's only a teeny bit away from the coordinates she's giving us. And he's got a Capricorn ascendant, 15 degrees. He's got, in his first house, is jam-packed. He's got Jupiter in Capricorn. He's got Venus in Capricorn, 17 degrees. He's got Moon in Capricorn, 18 degrees. Then he's got his Sun in Aquarius at 7 degrees. Then in his second house, he's got Mars, 17 degrees Aquarius and 54 minutes, and Mercury retrograde in Aquarius at 19 degrees. That's a little stellium he's got there. It's between two houses, but trust me, his stellium is pretty packed. Then his moon and his sun aren't near enough together to be a conjunction. So the sun and the moon aren't talking to each other. The sun is not that well aspect, or not well, hasn't got that many aspects. The sun is trying to Neptune, and the sun is opposition to Pluto. So if we're talking earlier on, we're saying about, the father, the sun and Pluto are opposite to each other, so there's some sort of big power struggle going on with dad. But whatever. And then we've got Uranus is, because it's a long time ago, this person was born, 27th degrees Gemini in the 6th house. We've got Pluto, 15 degrees Leo in the 7th. We've got Saturn at 4 degrees into Virgo in the 8th. And we've got Neptune, which is 15 degrees Libra in the 9th. The MC, this is an equal house. That's the point. There's her MC in there. She doesn't show it. That's a bummer. It's got the North node there. Nope, South node there. Isn't it funny they put these charts and talk about midheavens and they don't include in the charts? But anyway, in equal house, we've got the MC is in the 10th, and we've got Chiron 6 degrees Sagittarius in the 11th. So she says here, so Saturn, so this is the transits now. So she said end of June 1989, so I just did the 29th of June. And we got Saturn, transiting Saturn is now 10 degrees Capricorn, and transiting Neptune is 11 degrees Capricorn, and Uranus is sort of catching up, is a bit later, but Uranus is only 3 degrees Capricorn. So she says, Saturn in Capricorn are beginning to set off his Capricorn ascendant, Saturn transiting the Capricorn, beginning to set off his Capricorn ascendant and planets whilst squaring his natal Neptune. So his natal Neptune is in Libra. Okay, this repeated a natal Neptune square to his Capricorn ascendant, Jupiter, Venus, and Moon. So his natal Neptune is in the sign of Libra, and all of that I've just mentioned is squaring. Okay, so natally squaring. So this repeated natal square to his Capricorn ascendant, Jupiter, Venus, and Moon. Neptune squares his Moon, his Venus, and his Jupiter. Moon, Venus, Jupiter, and the ascendant. Okay, yes. In addition, transiting Pluto in the 10th, yes it is, was beginning to set off a natal opposition between Pluto and Mars - Mercury. So his natal Pluto is 15 degrees, transiting Pluto is 12 degrees, yes, and Mars Mercury, so his Mars is in Aquarius, so we've got a square there as well, and his Mercury is in Aquarius, yes. The transits of Pluto square natal Pluto and Neptune square natal Neptune are part of the midlife crisis for all of us. Here, they were doubly difficult due to the strength in the birth chart. That's what she says now. My feeling in looking at the chart was that his mother was an alcoholic, and that codependency was at the root of both his marital and professional problems. I was led to this deduction by squares from Neptune to the Moon and the ascendant-descendant axis. With transiting Neptune repeating the natal aspects, the pattern was reaching a critical point, a breakdown in functioning. These suppositions proved to be correct. Not only was his mother an alcoholic, a steady daily drinker, but his father was a problem as well, coming home drunk and disruptive at least once a week. Then she says, having just read extensively on codependency, I was at that point crusading for people with this pattern to read the books, watch Bradshaw marathons, go to therapy and attend codependency anonymous meetings. How would this hard-nosed businessman who had never considered therapy in his life come to see the need for it? Suffice it to say that my own recent acquisition of the material and my zeal to help others get free of codependency rendered me both knowledgeable and eloquent. I was able to show specific ways this history affected both his functioning in his career and his shaky relationship with his wife. He was also beaten and ready to listen. He was at a crisis point in the two areas of his life that had the most meaning for him, his career and his marriage. He'd suffered what had to be unbearable for one with so much Capricorn energy, the humiliation of demotion and the possibility of losing his job altogether. I had his ear. In February 91, I've got the chart for that as well, he returned for repeat reading, or for what he called, in his imministrably Capricornian fashion, a mid-course correction. He had just re-listened to the tape of our original session, thus all the material we discussed was fresh in his mind, and he could see that he had made substantial progress in that year and a half. He had not gone to therapy, that was too much for him to contemplate, but he had read a variety of books about codependency and adult children of alcoholics. With his Sun, Mars and Mercury in Aquarius, he had put the books down as simplistic, of course. Yet he seemed to have fully absorbed the ideas and worked hard at applying them. This was shown by marked changes in his behaviour with a tougher approach to conflict, direct and honest. He'd recently taken some very assertive, courageous and effective stances with his boss and his wife. Future transits by Neptune to his Capricorn planets followed by Uranus suggested that he was far from out of the woods. He'd faced the fact that both the job and the marriage might end. However, he was prepared to continue growing and felt he could not go back to the old patterns at work and home. In this example, we see how psychological interpretations need to be couched in career-relevant terms when you're doing a vocational astrology reading. The same critical issues will doubtlessly have come up if the client had come for a psychologically orientated reading, yet the focus is very different. You would endeavour to show exactly how long-standing emotional behavioural patterns affect the client's success. In doing so, you're more likely to be heard with less resistance and more able to motivate the client to change. Now we've got the follow-up, and I've done 15th of February because it gives the date 1991, and we can see now that Uranus is absolutely slap bang on its ascendant, and so is Neptune because it did a bit of retrograde earlier. Pluto's transiting and is conjunct his natal. Jupiter is transiting retrograde and conjuncting his natal Pluto retrograde in the 7th, and Saturn has now shifted into the sign of Aquarius. So first of all, and that's the awful thing, is awful the right word? When Pluto goes over your ascendant, if you've got stuff in your first house, it's a much, much longer transit, because it's not just the fact that it's in sign for 2 years. It's now, in his case, it's going to transit over his moon, sun, Mars and Mercury. So he's survived, inverted commas, Saturn going over his ascendant, which obviously was enough, and transiting his natal Jupiter and Venus. But now for it to be going past his moon, sun, Mars and Mercury, which are all in Aquarius, and Saturn's happy in the sign of Aquarius. It's, inverted commas, happy in Capricorn. But I know somebody pretty personally who's had Saturn go over their ascendant, and Saturn has now changed sign to Aries, and they're still going to be getting, unfortunately, don't know why I giggled there, they're still going to be getting all that Saturn energy. So we can sort of tell ourselves and clients, oh, Saturn only lasts for 2 years, but if you've got other planets in the next sign of the zodiac to where Saturn is transit, like in my case, hurrah, I've got nothing in Aries, I've got nothing in Libra. All I've got is planets in Capricorn. I haven't got anything in Cancer either. So in my case, with a transit that goes through the sign of Aries, there's less bashing going on in my charts, squares or oppositions, because I haven't got planets. Obviously it's going to do to houses. But yeah, so when you're making a vocational reading for someone, like, what job should I be doing, what has been happening, don't go deep into the psychology of it, but you can point out, if you're certain and you're sure about it, as she says, that, is there any similarities between what's happening at the moment and what might have happened at home? I do that quite a bit. Have you ever one question that I do ask clients a lot, have you ever felt like you're feeling now? So forget about the circumstances, but these feelings that are coming up for you, probably wouldn't ask a man that so much, but the feelings that are coming up for you at the moment, have you ever felt those feelings before? And then they'll have a little think, and then they'll go, oh yes, that was when my horse died, or when I changed schools, or whatever. Okay, so now the circumstances are different, but the feelings are the same. Well, this is more a hypnotherapy thing rather than astrology. When was the first time you ever felt like that? What was the circumstances? And they might have to go way back in time. Oh yeah, well, that was when my mother locked me out in the garden in the rain for 6 hours. That actually happened to a client once. So then you can't sort of launch into, well, we need to fix that if they come from an astrology reading, but you might sort of say something like, have you considered that might be something that needs to be assisted with, and then get on with the reading. And I absolutely take Donna's point that if that's why I've got a little bit on my website that asks, what is it that's uppermost for you now? What is it that you need to make sure that we're covering in the reading? Because if you're not doing what they've asked for and you're just giving them, chucking stuff at them, A, you're going to overwhelm them, B, they're not going to remember the reading at all, C, they're going to, why did I come and see this person? I didn't want to come for psychotherapy, or in my case, hypnotherapy or homeopathy or whatever. I just wanted to know whether or not having this job, that I'm going to be working in this shop as a cashier, if that's a good idea for me at the minute. So do make sure, and I also do that at the end of the consultation, have you got any further questions? And I'll go back and read out to them the email that they've sent me, the query email. We have to make sure we cover these things because this is what you've asked about. So vocational astrology, we've covered a little bit from Donna's wonderful books, which a pity it's out of print, the Consulting Astrologer's Guide book, and it was printed by Samuel Weiser, Weiser, in 1994. And we've talked about this particular Aquarius gentleman and the massive transit he's had going over his ascendant. And now that Saturn's changed sign, or is changing sign, and Neptune's changed sign as well, you're going to come across, either in your own chart or other people's chart, a sort of one's a very much an outer planet and the other's a sort of a mid planet, but you are going to come across people that are going to be, some more than others, feeling the effect of that. So don't dive in with the psychotherapy if they're coming for career. Talk about the career and keep in mind that issues that did come up at home will definitely come up in the work situation, which is not what you share with the client, but you keep that to yourself. Or they might have discovered that for themselves. What's going on for me at the moment feels exactly like this. Now, you yourself, in your private practice, if you become self-employed, you do need to have a strong Saturn. I just want to end the episode by saying that for you to feel successful in your own business, your Saturn has to be strong and not have too many cruddy aspects to it. Because in being self-employed like I am, there's no, I haven't got any, if I don't make any money, I starve. It's as simple as that. I have to make money. And I do have a very strong Saturn. It's in the sign of Capricorn. It's in my 5th house of creativity. So if you want to be an astrologer working for yourself, check out your Saturn. Can you accept the responsibility of being the total wage earner for yourself or your family or your pets or whatever? And because otherwise what happens is so many people I know that have gone and wanted to be an astrologer, working one-on-one with clients, and they're all big and full of it for the first 3 months. And then I saw a lady ages ago, she hadn't had any clients for, I don't know, something like a fortnight, and she was pleading on the social media platform she was on, so please come and have a reading. That's not going to prompt anybody to want to have a reading. That doesn't work. Anyway, I hope you have a fab week. If you want to learn astrology one-on-one with me, ping me over an email or buzz over to the website. There are details on there. You can book the first lesson. And just to explain about when you learn with me, I'm not teaching you. I give you Word documents and YouTube videos and suggestions for books. You teach yourself, and then when you've booked that first lesson, the date that you're choosing is the date for the 1 hour session where we talk through what you've already learned. So it's retrospective. So that first date that you book to be with me is retrospective. So whenever you do it, I had to explain it again the other day. I've obviously not made it clear enough on my website. I'll have to adjust a few things here or there. That first lesson, Introduction to Astrology, that you book, don't book it for the day after. So like if you're going over to the website today, don't book that consultation for tomorrow, because I've got to get the stuff to you and I might not get your email straight away. You need at least a week to read the document, watch the YouTube videos, get the flipping books, make your chart up, make an account at astro.com. There's quite a lot you've got to do before you choose the date and time where you're going to be discussing with me what you've learned, the questions that you've got, and that way you're learning at your own pace, and you can choose as long as or as short as you like to do it. So some students have spent a year learning 6 lessons, and others have done it in 6 weeks. So you choose your time frame. I don't care how you want to learn. I want you to learn the way that will suit you. So I hope you have a fab week, and I'm back next week. Bye bye now.